Happy today. I am William Brown from IamWilliamBrown.com. Yes, something just happened on the screen. I don't know what that is. I'll figure out what that is later. But I am WilliamBrown.com. Let's start all over. It's like sometimes when I get distracted, a lot of other things happen for me. So happy today. I am William Brown from IamWilliamBrown.com. This is Disconnect to Connect, one-word conversations. I Am William Brown is the sponsor of this show, and it's a place where you can find items and have a conversation with me about being yourself and living your life. One way that I spotlight the items that are on there is by using the U card. The U cards are intention setting cards, and it's a game. There's a lot of other ways that you can use the U cards. And so what I do is I draw 3 U cards for the show. And today, my intentions cards are I am curious, which is always fun because that is one of my core values. You are grateful. So I am grateful. That is great. So, and my quote card for today is "Be you, do you, for you." So that is the intentions that I have set for today, and I will introduce our word. Our word today is surrender, which is an interesting word because I have been reading a book recently on, letting go and the concept of surrender and everything like that. So just gaining a different understanding of that has been fun to see. So it will be interesting how it comes up within this conversation. So with that in mind, I will bring in my friend and we will have a conversation. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Well, this is the moment where I ask my friend to introduce themselves however it feels comfortable to them.
Perfect. First, William, thanks for inviting me along. This has been a great journey. I've had this word for about a week now, and it's been really fun. So thanks for opening me up to some new ideas.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I am Leander. I am a full-service creativity instigator. I work as a multi-sensory, multimedia, multi-sensory speaking coach. And so my gifts have largely been expressed in the theater. I'm a theatrical producer and director. I have performed in 49 states and 17 foreign countries.
Wow.
And conducted something upwards of 5,000 performances in my career. And I bring all of that to this magic of communicating with other people and really love what I do.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I am so honored to have you within this conversation. So the question of this morning is, how does the word surrender land for you?
Like a 50-pound lead weight.
Wow.
It's it was interesting because I was really excited to find out what my word was. And then I got surrender and I thought, you've got to be kidding me. But the wonderful thing is it just caused me to rethink. I mean, surrender, I even looked it up in the dictionary. Okay. And there is nothing good about the word surrender.
Right.
Surrender is to be conquered in a battle. And so you have to surrender. You have to sign a treaty. If you get too old, you have to surrender your driver's license so you can get a new one. Surrender is always about giving something away. And I started looking at that and I thought, well, okay, but surrender is also about what I choose to do with where life is right now. And we're all in a place of surrender.
Right.
We're all in a place where we don't know what's going on tomorrow, much less this fall. I work, like I said, I'm working with a children's theater company. We're trying to be flexible, trying to decide where to go from here. We can't have rehearsals, and we don't know when we can start rehearsals.
Right.
So it's very interesting.
Yeah,
And
yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I'm sorry if I interrupted you. Hopefully, you
that's
can
fine. Go ahead.
keep your thought. But for me, I woke up with surrender today, right? And
Right.
the thing that came to me was that surrender is a choice, right? It is, even if it feels that it's forced on me, or if it is something that I believe that is forced on me, I still have a choice in it, And it was like, wow, okay.
It's the theater concept in improvisational theater, and I know this is fairly well known, but improvisational theater is built on the process of yes and. When
Right,
you're handed something by a fellow actor on stage, your response is always yes and. Because the minute
right,
you say no, you know, is that your purple dog? No.
right,
Conversation over. Well, is
right,
that your purple dog? Yes. And I
right,
see you have a green gecko on your shoulder. Now the scene
right,
is going somewhere. And
right,
my life was thrown upside down about 10 years ago. And the best advice I ever got in that moment is you've got to accept this as the new normal in your life and learn to live in that room because this room's gone.
right. It is something. I had that same conversation with Amy. I think it was Sunday or Saturday. Sometimes these conversations and this pandemic, I lose track of days, right? So it's like I know I had this conversation, and so it came up a number of times that I told her, because a lot of her work is within improv, and I said, hey, I've solved the problems of the world, right? Is that it's improv training. And it's just like you were saying, is that yes and. It
Yes.
is, there is most of the challenges or the suffering, I believe, that's happening in our life, in our society, is that we're not this yes and. We're not accepting reality.
Right.
If we accept it, or if we surrender to it, then we can add to it. And the
Yep.
more that we allow ourselves to kind of go, yeah, this sucks. And,
And
and right, and this is how else. And it's like, if we stay in that, I'm going to fight this, I'm going to resist this, I'm going to, we will never get beyond it.
well, plus it just sucks our energy dry.
Right.
I came face to face with that with the emergence of the coronavirus.
Hmm.
I was on my way home at about 9 o'clock at night when the NBA announced they were canceling the rest of the season. And that
Hmm.
was the instant which I realized our world was going to be different.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
I went home, and that night I had trouble sleeping because I realized that I'm not prepared. I'm in a high risk category on a couple of the things. And so I realized I'm not prepared to die, and in the sense of I haven't taken care of my kids. I haven't taken care of my will.
Mm.
And that just was overwhelming to me.
Right.
And everything was so sketchy at that point, and I
Right.
felt like I was at much higher risk than I actually was. But
Right.
it caused me, I stressed about it for about 3 days, and then I sat down and started the paperwork.
Right.
And it was
Yeah.
that switch from, oh, can't deal with this, to, and the interesting thing is in those 3 days, I got nothing done.
Right.
Nothing done
Right.
except
Right.
the stress. But once I
Right.
leaned into the stress and said, okay, that's awful. What can I do about it? And it was
Right.
that yes and that allowed me to move forward. I turned my will in. And in fact, the day I turned my will in to my lawyer, I just went out for a walk. And it was great.
Right.
It was great.
Right.
But I had to get to that yes and moment first.
Right. It's that just like you were saying with the definition of surrender, like there's just nothing good, that a part of that. And I've learned from having these conversations that words don't just come with the definition. They come with stories, they come with emotions, they come with all these other things. But sometimes we act as if we're only using these words with the definitions, you
Right.
know
Right.
and then we try to communicate, and then you wonder why there's this disconnection in our communication, right? Because a lot, it's landing, the word that we just used is landing totally different than the definition, and it is just very fascinating that for me, this word, and the reason why I've tried not to use it as much, but now I'm embracing the power of it, is that I didn't want to be dominated. I didn't want to give up. We have all these images of don't give up. You're just your life is worth all the things that we say. But there are moments in our lives that when we give up to reality, then we gain. There is something that we gain because of that. But it's a hard place in some cases. We need the 3 days of doing nothing, but stressing about it to
Right.
kind of get to that place.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a process of, I loved your conversation yesterday with Billy, and his statement that the only consistent in our life is change.
Right.
And there's an unpredictability that feeds surrender.
Hmm.
And when you run into something that's unexpected, unpredicted, you have to be ready to shift. It's the whole
Right.
concept of working in an agile fashion. And
Right.
13 years ago, I was fired from my job on the basis of a false rumor that I was gay and I was having an affair with um, my hairdresser.
Hmm.
My HR guy asked me, "So, are you are you gay? I understand you're going to a gay hairdresser." And I said, "Well, no. And is there a good one that isn't?"
Right.
He didn't see any humor in that, and all of a sudden, I realized the conversation was going someplace completely different.
Right.
In that one moment, I lost a 33-year career. I lost my resume. I lost my references. I lost my entire body of work.
Wow.
But what was the most, I lost my income in 24 hours. And what was the most difficult for me was all of the relationships I lost
Hmm.
and not having anyone to vouch for my body of work.
Right.
And that's made the last 13 years a challenge. But
Right.
it's, I spent some time just being angry about it.
Mm.
Now I'm at the point, eventually I turned the corner and was like, okay, so what am I going to do from here? And I get a chance to reinvent my life. How do I reinvent my life? And
Right.
um, I've really had a great time doing that. Uh, One of the things that I've learned is I've got to be open to the idea of things that I don't know. For the longest time, I was frustrated that I couldn't get things accomplished.
Right. I got
And
that. Hmm.
all of a sudden, I realized, well, one of the reasons I'm not getting things accomplished as quickly as I used to is because I don't have a staff of 7 working for me.
Right.
Um,
That's helpful, right?
and yeah, and I'm working. In some cases, I'm working with things that have progressed ahead of me, and in that transition, I lost touch of some things. And my son encouraged me to be better at doing my homework, and that is our code word for just accepting that there's something I don't know, that there's something I'm unfamiliar with. I mean, there's plenty of things I don't know, but
Right.
there are things I expect myself to know. And just letting go of some of that and saying, no, you know what? I got some homework to do before I start this project. I did that
Right.
just a couple weeks ago. Um, and I went online and I started looking for help with a music scoring program that I use when I'm writing arrangements for people. And over the course of the last 13 years, they've upgraded 4 or 5 times. And I've kept track of those, but only in a very cursory fashion. So I
Right.
went back to the drawing board and started from the beginning. And it took me 4 days to get through that learning curve. But
Right.
the next orchestration I worked on took me 6 hours instead of 15. And
Wow.
it was
Hey,
because I had learned the program better.
because you did your homework, and that's, I mean, look,
And
I'm
I
writing that
surrendered
down
to
for
not
myself,
knowing.
right?
I
Right.
surrendered to not knowing what I needed to know, thereby giving myself permission to dig in and learn it.
Right. No, I get that. I think the thing that came up for me when you were sharing your story, and about, in the moment, how your life changed, but over the 13 years, you're, I guess, figuring out what next is. And I'm sure, because I've had those moments, and it was like within 5 years or so, but I am still like kind of figuring that out. And but the thing that came up that I wanted to ask you
Mhm.
is that it's not just as simple as, well, you just have to surrender that this, your life is over. you know um, what do you think the process of understanding what you are to hold on to, right, and what are to surrender to? It's like that balancing or discernment of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Um, First of all, I'm just realizing in your question that the irony of my whole story is that
Mhm.
this question about my hairdresser being gay and the affair was
Right.
absolutely false. It was
Right.
an unfounded rumor.
Right.
And part of what happened in that is I lost my job, I lost my income. I had been living in the closet because I knew that if I came out, I would lose my job. And now I've lost my job anyway. So
Right.
why do I need to stay in the closet? And I'd been in the closet
Right.
for 33 years, but I had
Mhm.
known since I was 6 years old that I was gay. And uh, so back to your question, um, part of what I've done is I've surrendered to the fact that I don't have as much control as I'd like to have over where I move
Mm.
forward. Um,
Got
I
it.
am a control freak
Mm.
in the best professional sense of the word. You know, my
Right.
my job as a theatrical director is to make sure that the audience that sees the first show sees the same program as the audience that sees the 88th show.
Mhm.
And so there are lots of things that are built in to make everything predictable, right down to the
Right.
point that when actors pass backstage, they always pass on the same side, they pass at the same time, they pick up
Right.
their props backstage from the same place. All of that becomes part of muscle memory, and things don't
Mm.
get forgotten.
Right.
For me, it was really hard to get my feet back underneath me.
Mhm.
And it was especially hard because there was no one who could vouch for me. And
Mm.
so I have struggled to figure out how to explain who it is. I mean, with the exception of 4 or 5 people, there's
Mhm.
nobody in my life right now who knows what my previous career was and has any
Mm.
concept of what I did. Um, and so that makes it difficult to move forward.
Right.
But I've found plenty to do. And I've just dug in and done volunteer work. I've worked in various places. I've just kind of cast my fishing line out there and see what bites. Uh,
Right. There is no, and I appreciate that. There's a term that I use, and I think I'm going to try it on with a lot of my my clients that I have within my coaching, is that I say that I have an actionable awareness of myself.
hmm,
um, and with the recognition, for me it feels as if that there are things that I know about myself, right, and appreciate and love and all that, but I also am aware and not aware that there are areas of myself that I have no understanding or appreciation or love and everything. And so there is this hope, this desire that I will learn more about myself. But while I'm here, I'm going to stay in action, because when I went through my trauma, or my what when my identity was in crisis, that's how I frame it. And I wasn't having an identity crisis. My identity, who I thought I was creating and I was in crisis. And I was like saying, okay, if I can't be this person, who the heck can I be? Who am I? Then it was that, like you were saying, that reinventing, reimagining myself to how I'm still going to be here. I have to be something else. And
mhm,
so I had to surrender to the fact that I had no idea who I was.
right.
And so I went through the process of just, um, as you said, just throwing things up against the wall, just saying, okay, do I want to do this? No, I don't want to do that. Right. It's like, the time that I met you through the community that I met you through with, Camp GLP and everything. I was so grateful, and I was reminded from my conversation with Billy and other members of the tribe that I met that community, months before my trauma happened. So there was this level of support that I had that if my trauma would have happened without that support, I have no idea how I would have got through. maybe it would have taken 13 or longer, years. But I think it has shortened my time to discover myself because of the level of support and the level of the people that I had around me. So it's just very interesting when we what happens when we surrender.
Yeah. And that support is so critical.
Right.
It is in those. I discovered recently, actually through Jonathan's Sparketypes, I discovered recently that I am not the kind of person who creates out of the blue. Give me a whiteboard with one word on it, like surrender, and I can go on for hours. And it was very interesting to me to see that. And I've known that since I was in grad school. I realized that I don't ever want to be the top person on the totem pole. I always want to be in the decision-making body, but I want to work in a community. And I do my best work when we're sitting around a table having a conversation and things start to pop.
Right.
So, and in that sense, I'm a synergist. But and I'm always looking for the how to get to there. And so that hasn't changed about me. But losing my job, losing my career, allowed me to see that in a new light. And so I started looking for new places to express that. And I realized, my whole job is to put people on stage and make them look natural. I do that with actors all the time. I do it with non-actors all the time. Why can't I do it with TED speakers? And that's how I started volunteering with the local TED organization. And I became a speaker concierge. Once they realized where my gifts were, they put me on the speaker concierge team. And that's been a lot of fun. I would never have found that had I still been doing my other job. So,
it's like so much of your life is available to you when, I don't want to say a trauma or when something happens. Even lies or even things that, rumors or something, because it's I think there's this element of, I wrote this quote, some of the many posts that I put up. Sometimes I sit with them for a while, and sometimes, they're hot off the press and I just let them out, and I just, it's like, think about it later. Right. But it was like, if someone tells you how to live your life, or what you should do, they don't know you. It's like nobody else can do that. But too often, I'll speak for myself. I was heavily dependent on what people said and didn't say about me to dictate how I showed up in my life. And that had an end, right? There was a time limit to that. And so the more that I'm able to discover and create my life, at the same time, then people can say what they say, and it's just like, all right, because I'm dealing with something right now that just came to mind, and I didn't know if I was going to bring it up on this show. But it's probably something that I need to surrender and just kind of let go. Is that there is someone that, a family member that, I love and respect, that we were talking about, this show, and they said that, oh yeah, that show was brutal for me. And it's like, what? And it's like, I know you, and that's just not you. And, I hate seeing you on that show. And it's like, wow, I was like, I feel this show is more me than than any other way that I showed up. But, so I'm like listening to this. And in some cases I was like concerned, and I started questioning myself, and I'm like, wait a minute, is all of this an act? Am I kind of doing all this kind of stuff? And it's just like, let it go. That's their opinion, right? That's what they're saying. And it's just that thing. But it was like, there was that moment of, wait a minute, am I not showing up, as myself here, or have who they think I am, or is who they want to see, and that person's not showing up on this show.
Or are they seeing backwards to the Bill they know, and
Right.
you're moving forward to the Bill you're becoming?
Right. And as I say that I am, I've kind of let go of becoming. That the more that I am, right? I am who I am, like Popeye, right?
Okay.
And
Yep.
but there's a larger part of who I am that I'm not aware of. So I'm not becoming anything. I am just gaining awareness of who I already am.
Right.
And so so yes, absolutely, I am living more of my life and showing up more of something that a lot of people haven't seen before. But it's still, we can be held hostage to what other people think of us,
Yeah.
and want us to be, or need us to be, and we're just trying to be, right?
Right. There is a truth in family systems counseling that when one person in the family sphere changes, it affects everybody around them. And the whole
Wow.
family has to change to support that one person who is going through a growth spurt.
Right. Wow.
And I think that's really true. I've actually seen that happen with people I've been talking with. And, as one person in the family gets healthy, the rest of the family adjusts. And
Yeah. Wow. It goes that be you, do you, for you, right?
right.
And that's
And you will
wow.
change the people you touch if you do that.
Right.
Um,
Wow.
which is really an incredibly powerful thing to see happen. And
Right.
sometimes things that are very difficult in a family relationship, one person starts acting correctly rather than responding to the negative behavior, they just act in a positive manner. And I don't want to make that overly simplified.
Right. No, oh no, there's a lot of other things with that. I totally get that. And really, the question that keeps coming up is, why do you think it's so difficult to just allow people to grow? Like, to allow the growth, the flow of, someone's life. Everyone wants to grow up, right? Everyone has to grow up. We always encourage people to grow up, but then we fight people from growing up, right? It's like the oxymoron that our human existence, right?
Well, and I think it's a circular answer, because one of the reasons it's hard for us to let other people change is because we instinctively know that means my relationship with them is going to change as well.
Wow.
And so I think instinctively we know that, and we have to be willing to surrender our perception of that relationship to let their relationship change so that we can continue to be friends with their most authentic self.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. I have the conversation about labels, right? And living beyond our labels. And I, it was my life, my survival way of, dealing with how people saw me and didn't see me when I was growing up. But when I invite that for other people and I get a resistance from that, I was just like, oh, they're just not ready. And I think what you just gave me within this conversation is that when we live beyond our labels, when I see you and not your labels, I have to grow the hell up. My relationship with you is growing. Is changing. I am seeing you on a wholly different level.
Sure.
And so I'm going to resist that because I like Leander like he is, right? So it's like, no, none of this. When I see you the next time, I want to know who the hell I'm seeing. I don't want to have to kind of remember that I have to grow up and all that other kind of stuff. And so I just got that for myself, that what I'm asking people to do is really grow up, grow into your relationships, not just with yourself, and but with other people that you have. And there is a level of surrender that has to happen within that. And it's like, wow, okay.
Well, yeah. And there is that now we're back to the word unpredictable.
Right.
Will Leander be the same person that I talked to today when we talk 6 months from now? And the reality is I won't.
Right.
At least I hope I'm not.
Right.
Because I hope I've grown and expanded, but that's going to be fun. And we have this. I used to do this experiment when I was doing speaking tours, and I would ask people. I'm standing at the front of the room, and I'd ask people to recommend ways to change me. And you can change me any way you want. And how would you change me? And in almost 3 years of asking that question, I never had anybody suggest adding something to me. They always wanted to take something away from me. Take off your tie. Nobody ever said, I'd like to put a watch on you. Or have you ever considered wearing a hat? It's just interesting to me that we perceive change as negative.
Wow.
And I think we perceive surrender, because of the connotations of the word, we perceive surrender as negative.
Right.
I'm fascinated. And I'm kind of circling back to homework, but this is a different take on the homework. One of the things that's fascinating to me, I wish I had bought stock in Zoom in January. They had just exploded, right? But I did start using Zoom 2.5 years ago. And I started using Zoom because I needed it for one of the students that I worked with. And Zoom was much better than some of the other options because it made it so easy to have multiple cameras. And when I'm teaching piano students, especially, I like having one camera on the music, one camera on my face, so I have face-to-face communication, and one camera on the keyboard so they can see what my hands are doing if I need to demonstrate something. I also want to see their face and their keyboard. So I can use 5 cameras on Zoom with no problem.
Wow.
Now, because I had that up and running, when COVID hit, took me 20 seconds to convert all my students to Zoom. And the best thing about that is I was able to put them all on 2 days. So I have one setup, I teach 2 days, and then I have the other 5 days of my week free to do the other projects I'm working on. but that was about, it was not about predicting change. It was about, this is the tool I need, so I'm going to embrace it. Oh my goodness, I had no idea it would be this valuable. And it allowed me to go instantaneously to online lessons. And I've picked up some new students because of it.
Right. No, I think there is, and I think in some cases that's the power of surrender, in the sense that there were so many people and companies and organizations that said, telework, is not effective, and doing things online, you can't do this online. There's, the technology was there, but now because there is this, you were forced to, this is the only way that we have to do. Now you can say, you know what? I guess we can do this. I guess I can, expand this. I get, it's not the same, but the more that I lean into this, I am able to learn and kind of really create, an experience that I want. I think there is still conversations and I guess letting go. Let's just say, I'll just say that, and surrendering to that, because there is still this mindset of, we're going to reach a point where we can go back.
Right.
There is still that mentality that we're going to reach a point where we can go back. And there's going to have to be a point where collectively we say, you know what? There's no going back. So let's just figure this shit out, right?
And to use a tired phrase, this is the new normal.
Right.
So figure out how to live in this normal.
Right.
I wrote down the very first week, I said, this is going to change our concept of normal. I wonder what the new normal is going to look like. Right. I've never asked, when are we going to get back?
Right.
I've always asked, what's the new normal going to look like?
Right.
And I think it will affect us in so many ways.
Wow.
And it's very interesting.
Yeah. We could talk about this for hours, but I'm sure that there's something else in our day that we need to surrender to, right?
Yes. I want to do two quick stories.
Okay, great.
One was how to surrender.
Okay.
I made a decision 3 months ago. I have had a meditation practice on and off for several years. But I knew that in the midst of this pandemic, I needed to reignite that. I couldn't do it. For whatever reason, shame, obstinance, just whatever sheer determination, I couldn't do it. And I fought it for, at least a month. And I finally said, why can't I get my butt to sit down in the chair and meditate? And what I ended up doing was making a deal with myself that for the next week, I was going to sit in my chair at 6 o'clock every morning in my own little corner, in my own little chair. I was going to sit right here, whether I meditated or not. And I was going to do it for 7 days straight. I thought, I can do that.
Right.
Well, actually, I couldn't. Because I sat here 2 days and then I started meditating.
Right.
And I've now done 90 days in a row as of this morning.
Wow, congratulations.
But it all came from, I'm just not going to fight this.
Right.
I'm going to do something. And after I'd sat in the chair a couple of mornings, it was the discipline of getting into the chair. Right. Once I was in the chair, I knew what to do, and I just kept going. So,
wow.
One of the most encouraging things I've had said to me over the last 13 years, talking about people not having any concept of what I've done or how I've lived my life in my old life, my past life. and not having any idea how that impacts what I do now.
Mhm.
I have an accountability group on Monday mornings, and Peter rarely said anything in that group, but when he did talk, it was worth hearing. And one morning I'm talking about this, and he says, David, relax. Just because you don't have a Navy doesn't mean you don't have the skills of an admiral.
Hmm.
And I realized, yeah, with all of this unpredictability, I am surrendering, but I'm surrendering to bringing the old me into the new me. And I'm learning to be me in a much more authentic fashion than I've ever been. And I know what I'm capable of, and I'm the only person who needs to know. And as I step into opportunities, as I surrender to where I am today instead of wanting to be yesterday or tomorrow,
Right.
as I surrender to today, then life begins to unfold in front of me.
Wow. No, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I really got something for myself there, and it is, the old me and the new me, and just being with that. And I think that's the conversation that I have about being yourself and living your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is, and the one thing that I really encourage people to find within that is that we are on this road, this journey, alone with others, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and you have people like Peter and other people in your mastermind and other people collectively that are aware of you, who you are, and who you are, right? Who are you becoming, right?
Right.
All of that.
Yep.
And there was something, and I think that will end with this is that I was listening to, I think, a podcast or something, and they were talking about, hey, I really appreciate this person because they saw the potential in me. And in my mind, I was like, no, they didn't see the potential in you. They saw you. That's it. If we
Mm-hmm.
could just, there are some people that see us and many people that don't see us. And it's not about the potential, it's about us. The more we show up as ourselves, the more that we can make the difference and be the difference in the world. So thank you very much for this conversation. This has really, really been great.
I'm honored you invited me to join you. This has been a great discovery for me over the last week. So thank you for that.
Wonderful. So I'm going to put you in the green room. We'll say our goodbyes from there, but this has definitely been great.
All right.
Okay. Wow. The level of surrender and how that's landing, and I feel that I can just stop at being dominated and being and the have tos, but I think there's a want to. There's a choice. There's a power within our surrender. And the more that we look at opportunities to let go, things that we say that are good or bad or whatever, just stuff, just let it go. And it gives us access to more. Yeah, I hope this conversation brought value to you, and I really invite you to share within the comments or reach out to me on IamWilliamBrown.com and have an introductory coaching conversation with me about what's showing up in your life and how you see yourself and how you want to see yourself, and just go from there, because you are important. The world wants you. The world needs you. And the world is waiting for you. So go be you. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow.